and I'm going to be introducing Adam and Simon. I need my glasses. Right, and my phone has closed because I want to do a nice introduction. Okay, so Adam Sachs and Simon van Dijk, standing behind me, are from Platform 45. And one of the things that is in the intro on the app really has piqued my interest. It says, Platform 45 has long believed that it's at the intersection of technology and the liberal arts, and that's where change really happens. I think that's such an awesome statement to make. So I'm really looking forward to your talk. And the title of Adam and Simon's talks is Platform 45's Agile Design and Development Journey. So give them a big hand.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Well, thanks, Virginia.
Morning, everyone. So, software is eating the world. Mark Andreessen famously equipped this in 2011, and it's something that we've really come to internalize and believe at Platform 45. We've come to believe that all businesses are increasingly software-based, and our strengths lie in helping our clients figure out how to best use software to improve their businesses, to solve their problems. Over the years, we've increasingly turned to Agile and lean methodology to build better software products with our clients and help them become new economy-style businesses that eat rather than get eaten. We're honored to be able to stand up here today and tell you a bit about our journey toward being an Agile product development company. But before we dive into this journey, we'd like to thank the organizers of this amazing conference. It's really a privilege to be able to stand up here today in front of all of you, share our experiences and learn from those of everyone else who's speaking. We're especially humbled to be able to speak right after Kent there, who has been such a huge influence on the software industry as a whole. So not only is this my first Agile Africa, but I got to speak, and I got to speak right after Kent there afterwards. So by way of introduction, me and Simon would like to tell you a bit about ourselves and what brought us to building software for a living and spending our days figuring out what to build, how best to build it, and when to keep on building.
Right, thanks, Ed. So when I interviewed with our founder's office over 4 years ago, I walked in there, looked at his computer, and on his desktop he had this image of a crossroads. And the one sign said design, or the liberal arts, the other sign said technology. And Sean turned to me and he said, it's at the intersection of design, or the liberal arts, and technology that real change happens. And from there I was kind of hooked. I founded a company that really valued design. So my intersection with Agile begins when I started to understand the turbulent nature of software and the very dynamic landscape of tech, because that's my formal training as a developer.
My own journey to tech and Agile product development began actually at one of Platform 45's clients. We were a small tech startup in the telecom space, and we were building some pretty cool optimization software. I started out more on the sales and operational side of things. I'm not a software engineer, I don't have a formal background in design, rather studied philosophy and a bit of law. But I found that I didn't want to really be stuck selling the product or only stuck on the operational side of things, but I just couldn't keep away from the actual exciting stuff, which was actually creating the product that we were selling. I began working quite closely with our development team that included some of the very talented people at Platform 45. And being a startup, of course, our roles were pretty loosely defined, and I played in sort of a role of product owner. Working closely with developers was a revelation to me, as prior to that I really didn't have a clue what developers did or how software is actually made and how we can so rapidly turn ideas into tangible products. Fast forward a couple of years, and after a brief stint with startup mode, I joined Platform 45 as product owner, a role that was pretty new to the business at the time, and we'll get onto that a bit later. I now spend my days working side by side with various of our product teams as we build a pretty diverse array of software products across many different domains. In my now role as product manager and chief operating officer, I'm also constantly looking at how we engineer our teams for success. Ensuring that our teams are set up to succeed means understanding how to continually nurture the collaboration and organizational agility that we strive for.
Cool, so let's get down to business. Why are we here? Why are we sharing our story with you today? So we've learned that if you're really real and intentional about the Agile values and principles, that everyone is better aligned to the purpose of your business and have a shared vision of what you want your company to be, your kind of unique challenge as a business. Our goal today is not to be an authoritative source of Agile in any way. If anything, is for you to take away from this talk is things to avoid. So this is our story of lessons learned, mistakes made. I hope you have some takeaways in that regard. So Adam's going to share a lot about how we've brought the client into the fold, many of our processes, and I'll take a look at the journey, some mistakes that we've made, lessons learned, and share what's working for us as well.
Thanks, Simon. So, as an outsourced software development company that focuses on building products together with our clients and partners, we spend a lot of time thinking about how we can meld our software expertise with our clients' domain knowledge. Not only that, but it's often the case that we're working with people who, whilst brilliant and passionate, don't understand much about software and the inherent complexity and uncertainty that defines what we do. If I think back to when I was a client at Platinum 45s, that defined us. Those of us who weren't software engineers, we didn't understand why software development was so complex. We didn't understand that unexpected things happen at any given moment and how we need to be able to adapt to that change. As we've deepened our understanding and application of Agile as a business, our approach to software product development has evolved, and we found that we're getting much better at introducing our clients to our ways of work and nurturing the kind of authentic collaboration that forms the bedrock of any successful team. And as a result, we're also building better products. But we'd like to take you back a ways to our early years when we still had everything to learn about Agile product development.
Right, so this brings us back to the beginning of our journey. This is approximately 8 years ago, and things were quite different. Back then, and for the next couple of years, we were very much focused on outsourced development skills. Our clients came to us with great ideas, all the requirements, and we provided the developers to implement. Some things that really characterize this period is a pure focus on software delivery. We were very much bricklayers and had a very kind of waterfall mindset. We spent this time honing our technical expertise, perfecting development practices, and we learned a lot about testing in the development sense. What excites me about software is you can literally build anything, right? And I began to learn it's so important because of that fact, what you build, selecting what is it that you need to build. We were very, very good at developing beautiful software, working piece of software, but little focus was put on building the right piece of software. It was always a surprise when our software went into production. It's quite exciting, really, but not in the fun way. We also augmented our client teams. So if our clients had a functional team already, we would supply one of our developers because we saw them as bricklayers, right? And we evangelized building the perfect software instead of the right software. So with this aim to build the perfect software, what resulted was precisely the opposite. It wasn't perfect because we lacked those very crucial feedback loops, as you all know.
So not only were we trying to build waterfall, but we were also frustrated at not having enough input into what it was we were tasked to build. If we were augmenting somebody else's team, they had their ways of work, they had their approach, they already had their idea of the product, and here we were coming along, and often not necessarily at the beginning of this phase either, and we were having to slot in and just figure out our ways of working alongside of them. We didn't really have any ownership in what we were building. So as Simon said, our focus was being on technically great developers, but this started to give way to the need to be more involved, to be developing the products that we found ourselves building. We also wanted to build more complicated things. We wanted to be able to take ownership of the systems we were building, and at the time that meant hiring our first designers, and also building user interfaces for a change, instead of just back-end systems that plugged into the user interfaces that other people built. And as you can imagine, there were all the usual pitfalls of that handover. Our thinking being pretty waterfall, whether we called it that or not, meant we thought that the right approach was for our designers to spend time crafting meticulous, detailed, beautiful interfaces and doing it all up front, then handing it over to the teams of developers who would be able to swiftly implement, if only. We thought this would allow us to be super efficient and that it would also allow us to take on way more clients and projects, even if we didn't have the capacity at the time. Our thinking was that designers could spend weeks, if not months, crafting these beautiful interfaces, whilst the developers were busy wrapping up other projects. So we thought we were buying ourselves design time, and this would allow us to bring on more work. Didn't end too well in many cases. The traditional design process plays right into a common desire amongst designers to present only the most perfect products to the clients for review. This begins in the proposal and research phase, where our designers spend time crafting beautiful concepts and PSD markups, continuing right through to the final approval phase. But for the most complex projects, it really doesn't work if you do it this way. It doesn't make sense to spend weeks, if not months, designing an abstract completely devoid of that crucially important client input, and equally important, if not more so, user input. As soon as we took on more ambitious, complex systems, it became evident that we needed to chuck out a lot of the polished designs once we started actual development, which this was obviously hugely frustrating and super inefficient. We learned that we really needed our developers involved much earlier, and that we needed their involvement more often. As you can imagine, if you have designers off designing, they're not necessarily paying a huge amount of attention to what is feasibly possible, what can we design. And then developers get this design, they look at this, they go, we can't do any of this. Or this is, yeah, we can do this, but it's going to take a year. Does the client have enough budget for that? Which often wasn't the case. I will say that one of the things we learned pretty early on, though, was if your designers are also front-end developers, then you mitigate a lot of that risk, because you have designers who are more understanding of what's actually possible, and you start having designs turn out that aren't possible.
Alright, so let's forward a few years. We started understanding the need for embracing change in our business. And this is what at the time we call the Agile evolution. So once we began to understand we need to cater for this change, we started thinking about Agile. What does it mean for our business? We yearn to be more aligned with our vision of building products instead of just delivering software. And that brings us to our first mistake. We implemented a lot of practice before principle. So as a formal introduction to Agile, we invited our friends at In Reality, Jacques, Martin, some of the guys came, and they coached us. They taught us about some practices that we simply didn't have in our business, retrospectives,
reviews, planning, how to estimate.
Squads. Squads are the biggest one. So at that point, our company was about 20 or so, 25. And in 2 offices, we functioned as just 2 large teams. We implemented squads in the Joburg office when we were about 15 people. Point being, we implemented practice before purpose. We didn't understand or had necessarily internalized the Agile values and principles that kind of underpin those practices. So very much cargo culting there.
So, as Sachs said, one of the first things we started to implement was these Agile teams, or as we call them, squads across our business. This was something that became apparent, and something that the coaches quite rightly argued was necessary. That it's super important to have the right people come together to form cross-functional, self-organizing teams. I think we paid lip service to a lot of that early on. We were really keen to avoid the pitfalls experienced previously, especially designers working on their own and developers working on their own. And so the idea of building a team that had designers and developers, front-end, back-end, and also QAs, software testers, and later on adding product people to the mix was really quite exciting. We loved this idea. And it was really cool to start seeing this kind of collaboration and the different thinking that people bring to the mix. One of the things that Agile preaches is that it's so important to have business working side by side with technical people day in, day out. So when we began introducing these Agile teams, sorry, I think I've lost, there we go. So when we started introducing these Agile teams into our business, we started with 15 people in our Joburg office. We grouped ourselves into 3 smaller teams that each contained all the skills needed to see a project through to completion. And the intent was also, rather than having people hop on and hop off different client projects, we'd establish more durable teams that could go on to work together for a much longer period of time. And this was quite new to us as a services business. We were used to chopping and changing as the clients required. 2 developers here, then increased the team to 3, then dropped it down to 1. So we really wanted to have these teams that sort of got to work together, got to settle on their own ways of work, got to develop sort of a personality as a team as well. We wanted each squad member to bring their unique set of skills to the table so they could focus on their areas of expertise. We also started building our Agile squads in the sense that we thought, cool, well, they can possibly handle more than just one project at a time, which was necessary for us as a services business, in that we didn't just have the luxury of having one team on one project all the time, but maybe we had a small project that to fit into the team. And it was quite interesting to see that when you say to a team, listen, you own this project, we're not going to tell you who needs to work in it, who needs to do what, sort of figure out what makes sense, figure out amongst yourselves who's got capacity, and that's really your own responsibility. We sort of, in that way, started understanding what it meant to let the team self-organize. They had a project that came in and it was up to them to figure out who was going to work on it.
So as a services business with kind of this yearning for a product focus, we always live in the tension. Of we need to deliver some software to our clients while always understanding that they don't need software, they need a solution to their problem. So we started understanding the importance of estimation and predictability in our business. It was always important, it became more aware. And predictability, by a large degree, is determined by consistency. If our teams are kind of consistently delivering at a sustainable pace, it makes it a lot easier to project dates going forward. Ad actually mentioned that our teams, we started with our teams being very rigid, and we would apply a project onto whichever team that had the availability. We've actually gone around on that and said, okay, well, what does it look like if we tailor our teams around project needs? And we consciously actually made this decision because we find in our business, touching a lot of different kinds of projects, that the most motivated individuals working on what they kind of have a passion for do their best work. And we consciously made that trade-off. We said, okay, well, let's be a little less consistent here. If we can put someone who's really interested in financial calculations with this project that needs unity growth things. And we began to formalize across the squads some sort of iterative flow of work. So we call it a sprint, right? But that word is very loaded. It's a set processes that we run in weekly iterations. So we start with planning, execution, ending at the end of the week with a retrospective. Consistently keeping a prioritized backlog for each product is also really important. Not just to say, okay, well, we know we've got a lot more work coming up, but rather to say, Mr. Client, we're focusing not on just your software delivery now, but we've also got your product in mind. We're thinking about what is the next release, which is previously never something that we did as a services business. So probably the most important thing that we added from the In Reality guys, see Jacques at the back, is the retrospective. Understanding that we ourselves, not only on a craft level, developers, designers honing their craft, we need as a business hone our processes as our craft. And we began with the squad retros. Because we now introduced the squads, we understood retrospectives is how you improve them. So we ran retros with our squads once a week, and this allows our squads to kind of take stock of what happened in the week, work on the squad instead of working in the squad, and give them a bit of a sense of ownership. An important part of our retrospectives really is our kudos. This may sound really simple, but kudos is really just a system where we allow everyone to praise each other for efforts or achievements in the week, and that builds trust in the process. Another one of the things we learned from retrospectives is illustrated with this image. And you're going to share a bit about it.
Sure, but I just want to comment on what you just said. That very small act of just saying to somebody, well done, it's super powerful. It's so easy when you're in your iterative flow of work to just start hammering through work, just churning out features. And it's important that everybody gets that point in time where they can just take stock and obviously reflect on how the team is working, but also take stock and say, listen guys, we did great work. Like, well done to whoever put in a late night shift to overcome an unforeseen obstacle or something like that. We find it just adds a bit of humanity to the team that otherwise, can seem very much like machine-like. So what this picture illustrates is that for us, the retro isn't just this meeting that we have at the end of the sprint, but it's really interwoven in the whole iteration. It's that idea that the iteration is not complete if we haven't reflected on how can we do the things that we do in a better way. How can we reflect back on the sprint that we've just had, on the things we might not have achieved, the unexpected bugs that cropped up, the sudden requirements that users in production might have thrown our way. How can we think about that and say, listen, how could we have handled that situation better? Cool, let's take that learning, let's apply it to the very next sprint and see what happens. And it's really cool and gratifying when you do that and you see a bit of instant improvement. And that's what we're after, these sort of marginal gains as we work and as our teams sort of ever seek to get more efficient and more productive.
The next thing we really introduced was we were drinking the retrospective Kool-Aid, and we were on this feedback train. Retrospectives are the greatest thing ever. So we implemented something called the Retro of Retros, where we started this with representatives of the squads coming together and retrospecting on how their retrospectives were going. Because remember, we were new to retros, we didn't know how to do them. And this, we learned another lesson here, is that every retrospective is different. You can't treat it as kind of a ritual or a ceremony, but rather we needed to tailor this one specifically to be slightly different to how we ran the team retros. This is probably where the most difficult and most important conversations happen. We run this meeting bi-weekly, every second week, and it's difficult. Some of the things that come up there require some hectic psychological management of this group. But it's really a platform for transparency and allows those kind of big issues to surface to the front. You can start dealing with them. Now that we had these agile teams, we also noticed that they were becoming these isolated groups, and we had to combat that. So the retros helped us kind of with the knowledge sharing between the teams. Oh, you do your code reviews this way, that kind of thing. A cool example of what surfaced at one of these sessions was that it sounds quite simple now, but even though we had cut down on design time from being all of the design up front, we were still doing kind of 6 to 8 weeks in the future design. And what that resulted in was very speculative versions of the product. Remember now we have a more of a product focus. And this was partly due to lack of collaboration between the designers and the developers, but also a bit of an artifact from our waterfall thinking, kind of still lingering there in the business.
Yeah, I suppose we've gone from super waterfall to a bunch of mini waterfalls. Like each one of our iterations was a mini waterfall. It wasn't really properly iterative and incremental. So, as Sachs saying, he's exactly right. If being agile means embracing change and accepting the existence of the unexpected and unpredictable, then doing all this end-to-end UI designs ahead of the actual build, like we've been doing for so long, meant we were not leaving enough room for change. Our new agile squads allowed our designers and developers to collaborate more during this phase, sure, but we were still designing, as I said, 6 to 8 weeks into the future, and still placing far too much focus on polished designs. Clients love polished designs. You give them polished designs, they're happy, but then things change, and suddenly you've got to rechange this enormous artifact of a design, and it's just super inefficient and a waste of time. So to counter this, we decided to try to do as little upfront polished design as we could get away with. The idea was for a team's designers to keep the design just a sprint or two ahead of the development. And in this way, we could avoid working with deprecated designs or developers having to sort of stop everything whilst design reorient a whole sort of section of the app we were building and design that, and then the developers get to keep on going. We wanted to ensure that the work could continually flow. Our new approach also saw us evaluate how we were actually going about designing, and we had to change things up quite a bit. Where previously the focus was on these extensive UI designs, we now began to focus on crafting a componentized style guide for a product, so that designs became per feature as needed. We started spending more time understanding and designing each individual feature as we went. So practically what this meant is our planning used to start with high-level concepts around a whiteboard. We draw out some flows, and we're with the client, so it's super collaborative. Then we move on to functional wireframes, where we really unpack what exactly are we trying to achieve, what is this feature or the subset of features going to do, and this is far more valuable than any detailed specification document. Through an actual wireframe, you start getting a sense of this thing you're building without having to spend all this time designing up anything polished or making anything intelligent just yet. So we'd have these wireframes, and then we'd have our componentized style guide, and we'd have our designers focus on just creating the features that the dev team was going to need the following week and the week after that. And in that way, we tried to keep things moving in quite a road fashion. So here's an example of the kind of style guides we looked to create, so that more time could be spent on actual functionality and understanding the value of the functionality, and getting the clients to not get too precious about the polished design and expect these pages upon pages of designs that they could just sign off.
I think it's also important to mention here that you could also fall into the waterfall thinking, okay, well now we need a style guide, we've got to design every component, and it's easy to fall into the trap again. Even with this, we designed only what was required in the next kind of 2 or 3 sprints.
Sure. We'll discuss this more a little bit later, but it's also worth pointing out that there was still something a bit limited in how we were thinking about design. We were still making the mistake of thinking that design was just something you do when you need to do it. It was just a resource to be drawn upon. So even though we had our designers in the teams, there wasn't this appreciation yet for and I think Ken put it really well right in his talk. He said, design isn't a part of a process, it's an activity that everybody's involved with. We were still yet to learn that particular lesson. So the next milestone in our journey was seeing our Agile squads really evolve and start to click more and start working more cohesively. Once we figured out how designers and developers could work together better around clearer product goals. We also learned what it means when Agile coaches say people over processes. People over processes. So it was an important one. What people over process really meant to me, and where it really crystallized, was around the role of the client, which I suppose only made sense because that was how I'd come to the business in the first place. We had some painful experiences with misaligned clients, despite our increasing internal agility. So we were drinking our Agile Kool-Aid, our teams were working better, everybody inside the business was getting more aligned, but this wasn't always translating into the actual product teams that involved the clients that were building the products. We found that although we spent a lot of time internalizing that changes are constant and that we need to continually engineer our processes to help us navigate changing requirements, user feedback and all the other surprises that crop up, our clients were still struggling to embrace our approach and make sense of many of our practices. And it seems painfully obvious now, but if you have somebody in the team who doesn't truly buy into the methodology or the approach or the principles or the practices, then the relationship is not going to be as strong and productive as it needs to be. And if that person is the person who's paying you to deliver the products, things aren't going to end well. So we had clients who we weren't educating deeply enough into our practices and into why we build in an agile way and what this means and what the principles themselves mean. And it took us a surprisingly long time to realize this. And we needed to break the traditional services business, outsourced development mindset and cultivate a real sense of team with our clients. They're the domain experts, and we needed to work to help them become the product owners. So we had these product owners in our team, and we thought they could be effective stand-ins for the clients, that they could interface with the clients and channel the product vision into the team and channel the requirements. But this wasn't good enough, and our product owners actually ended up morphing a bit more into like a product owner and a scrum master all rolled into one. And we sort of started to think of their role as a coach for our clients. By the end of an engagement with us, we want our clients to be the product owner, to understand Agile, and to be able to build like we build once we've left the building. As we started spending more time explaining why we work the way we do, and involving our clients more deeply in our sprints on a day-to-day basis, including them in stand-ups, including them in reviews, we found that they stopped seeing us as an external service provider, and they see us as their product team. They see us as one unified team. We've also needed to do some other things to make sure this happens. And it sounds simple, but one of the key things is really promoting as much face-to-face interaction as possible. We found that even if you have your clients on a Skype call every single day for 15 minutes, and you have them in a planning session and maybe in a review at the end of the week, if there's no face-to-face interaction, something's going to be missing. And you lose that empathy between the team and the client. And you have your team thinking that the client is just that person over there who's throwing in requirements, and you have your client who's wondering what's the team doing half the time and not really understanding. We've worked hard to get our team to understand that they need to spend time face-to-face with the clients. Go to the clients for planning, or the clients come to us, but really just spend more time interrogating things and collaborating with the clients. Because collaboration is what it's all about.
The cool side effect of the people over process is really better planning. We started including developers in part of the planning process, started bringing clients into the fold, and if you just go to the next slide, this is kind of how our planning has evolved. So sprint planning was typically prioritized collection of work based on the squad's historical velocity, right? So how much work could the team accomplish in a week? Contrast that to how we view a sprint now, where it is really a commitment of work from the team. We look realistically at the team schedule. Do they have other commitments in the week? Can you really get to that ticket? No. So don't commit to it. And it's really helpful us managing expectations of the client as well. We implement some strange version of dual track Scrum. I've tried to really avoid these terms. You guys probably school me on all of them. But we try to have this discovery track or design follow development by about 2 weeks. And again, we try to include the clients in that process, as well as pull the developer into that discovery sprint when required. So we always have that kind of technical input as well. We ended up tailoring sprints according to releases. So Ad will touch on this a bit later, but typically our sprints used to be a collection of scope. And it's a small little mind shift, but kind of revolutionary in terms of a services and product business, where we defined releases, then tailored our sprints towards steps towards that release instead of steps towards delivering whatever epic your team is kind of thinking about at the time. Another important thing that we've experienced is sustainability. So this has kind of been a golden thread in our business. We mentioned how important it is for a team to be consistent, but not just consistent, but sustainably consistent. You know? So if you push them for a delivery for a specific milestone for the client, you must expect that the following week is not going to be as good. You know? You must also expect that it's never the same. It goes up and down. So these seem like simple lessons, but hard lessons to learn, I guess.
And even harder lessons to teach your clients. So that sustainability is also super important, because it's a bit easy with an outsourced dev company to sort of become this sort of just keep churning out and working as quickly as you can because the clients are throwing deadlines. We try to promote this kind of sustainability because we want people to be able to work at a steady cadence that's manageable and is something that can continue for a while, not just in short bursts, at least leave people burnt out. So I'd like to move to the next point now, which is more meaningful ceremonies. We've learned that it's really easy to ritualize Agile practices, especially when they're frequent or recurring. Specifically stand-ups and to a lesser degree retros. So confidence in these practices really depends on whether people feel they're working or not. And if people feel they're not working and they're not having value, then one of two things will happen. Either the practice falls by the wayside, daily stand-ups are wasting my time, it's 15 minutes, I don't get anything out of it, let's not do them anymore. They don't help us. Or the team has the stand-up, but it's really empty. It's just a procession of empty status updates, and nobody's surfacing like the real issue that's inhibiting somebody from getting through what they need to do. And it's amazing how easy you can fall into that sort of ritualization. So one of the things I like to do with my teams is we mix up how our stand-ups happen every now and then. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do them, but it doesn't really matter which you choose, as long as everybody's fully engaged, everybody's thought meaningfully about what do I need to share with my team today? What do they need to know about what I'm doing? Does the client need to know that I'm delayed on a specific feature? Do I need a piece of critical feedback from the client that means I'll really have understood what I'm building? And we want people to have these authentic conversations in the stand-up. It's worth pointing out, though, that we also want to avoid that stand-up becoming like a protracted product discussion. I think most people who've tried stand-ups have probably found themselves toward the tail end of a 30-minute long stand-up, and you're like, how did we get here? It was just supposed to be 15 minutes. So it's important to take note of the important things and tell whoever's talking about them to take it offline. But our stand-ups are really valuable in that they allow us to let our clients know what's happening all the time. So we encourage, if not demand, our clients to be in virtually every stand-up, virtually every day. And that's something we sometimes get a lot of pushback from. Clients are like, we're busy, we pay you to build the product for us, so we don't have to be doing this every day. And then we have to school them a bit on why it's important to collaborate. And I'd just like to point out where retros can also become a bit ritualized, and how important it is for teams to actually take action based on what they've been discussing. If everybody just has a bitch for an hour and nobody does anything about it, then it's like a bit of a valueless therapy session where you've got to vent, but how did that help? How did that help the team? So each action that comes out of a retro should really just include a discussion about what's the expected result of the thing we're going to do, and then the following week in the next retro track the action that you took. If you decided that you were going to, if a certain person in the team who's prone to overcommitment decides that they're going to instead of commit to 8 points worth of feature dev, only commit to 6, reflect on it the next week and see did it help.
Cool. So the next kind of section that wraps up the people over process milestone in our journey is really feedback. And we've tried to optimize the feedback within our teams, and we do this in 2 ways. We do this with code reviews and design reviews. So for the designers and the developers, they both have an internal review process. This is much more than a technical step. Yes, it is a quality assurance step technically, but we view it far more as a discussion than he said, this is the best way to do it or not. We use it kind of an opportunity to learn. And we've learned now, focusing on product, the most important thing isn't always the best solution in terms of code. So we try and encourage the guys to think about what is the most appropriate solution? What is the client actually asking for here? Is it something quick and dirty? Because the need is urgent, then do it quick and dirty. Is it something that requires a little more forethought? Something that's going to be that's going to become the core of the system. Think about it. We want to foster a culture of real, healthy vulnerability. For any creative, this is a very difficult thing to reach, but ever so more important. We try to foster a culture where people have strong opinions, but kind of loosely held, always open to this constructive debate around what is the most appropriate solution in this context. And inviting feedback on your work is a cool side effect of Agile principle, continuous attention to technical excellence. We do this on the design side as well. So let me just run through the designer's kind of thinking here. They first ask the question, is the design adhering to criteria? So they ask the question, what is the purpose of the design? What does it need to accomplish? Is it doing that, or is it just beautiful? Visual communication. Does the design meet the requirements to communicate the information correctly? Are there the appropriate visual cues? Creative collaboration talks to Similarly, how a developer would pair a problem, a designer would do this kind of creative collaboration thing where they play with an idea, they're both sitting in front of the whiteboard. How do we use design to address this need of the client? Then there's a technical quality step, similar to how we do the code reviews, but it's more of a discussion. We proceed with nothing really until it's been checked by someone else. Not to say this is the best piece of design, but is it the most appropriate solution? So can you see our evolution from kind of software delivery to more of a product focus? Does it reflect the design at hand, include all the necessary effects that should accompany it? And then the last one, it's my favorite, adapt or die. Right, so I mentioned in the beginning, Platform 45 deals at the intersection of design and technology. Our designers have fully accepted that technology is something that they need to embrace. We don't promote ignorance. We ask our designers, get your hands dirty in code. Ask our developers, understand design principles, and all of that kind of for better handover, better collaboration.
So with that, we move on to where we find ourselves today. Further entrenching the role that design plays in our process, really shepherding the process, and ensuring that the entire team are focused on the product. Product thinking is our favorite new pair of buzzwords. We might find some new ones, but for now it's these two. And where we are is at the culmination of a lot of lessons learned today, which isn't to say that we won't learn any more in the future. We're sure we will. But we really reframe how we think about what we do. We no longer just build software, we build product now. We plan the releases for the product. We understand what is the value that we're trying to add for our clients and to their users. What is the smallest increment of value we can put into the market at a time so that we can get user feedback super early. We've also learned that, whereas once we used to fixed cost projects, I'm sure fixed price and software gives a lot of people heart palpitations in this room. So it's taken a while, but we've persuaded nearly all of our clients that what we've got to do is work toward a budget and let that budget guide what we need to build. And let's stay open to change. Let the scope flex as we move toward our goals. We've realized that product design happens all the time. We're continually driving product design in the face of uncertainty and foster even closer collaboration around the shared practice of design. But the culmination of this is something we've tried over the past year, which is called a product design sprint. Some of you might be familiar with Google Ventures methodology, and really in a nutshell what it sees is us and our clients get in a room together with a rough idea of what the problem is, sort of collaborate, brainstorm, prototype, and on day 5 test the prototype with real life users. And in that we feel that we're forcing our client to learn some of the most important truths about Agile, about how we need to collaborate, about how we need to invite feedback early, and how we need to have the business and the technical people working side by side so that, it's all for the good of a product. It's this unifying vision of the product. So, to recap, just our 3 primary lessons before we end here. I know we're running a bit over time. It's hard to think we were like, maybe we don't have enough to say. Everyone in the team needs to buy into Agile. Everyone needs everyone in the internal team, but it also means your client if you work with a client. You have to pull that person as deep into your team as possible. Also, we have to agree on the values and the principles first. If the goal is putting valuable functionality into users' hands, then the internal team and the client agree on the most fundamental thing, and every other disagreement can be solved. And also, of course, introduce practices that fulfill these values, and make sure that you remember that you're being agile means you can change things up. Don't get dogmatic and think that the practices that serve you today are also going to serve you tomorrow.
Yeah, so if there's any key takeaway from this talk, it's those lessons, but really next slide. So understand this is really the culmination of the story. It's really, we understood our challenge as a business. So we were services business trying to do a product focus and move into product kind of thinking. Then add touch on the middle one. Focus on the values and the principles. Read about the practices, understand how and why they work, but you've really got to focus on internalizing why the values and the principles exist and how you can kind of see them happening in your business. And then flavor. Find your flavor of Agile. Sounds quite
Playful.
playful, but it is very serious. There's no other way that Agile is going to work in your business than the way that you tailor it to work. If you're remembering the values and the principles, your flavor of Agile will kind of see those practices come to life, and I don't know, maybe you invented your own practice. Thanks.
Cool, thanks everyone.
Right, we have time for one question. So while Jeffrey sets up for the next talk, we can take one question. I'll come to you. Can you stand when you ask questions so you can be picked up by the video, please?
Hi guys, well done. I think I really like your approach, how you're doing. I think I'm following a similar way. I just would like to have a few, not questions, but I just want to clear up what I thought about. So what's your size on each squad and how many developers are in each squad? And that's number one. And number two, what are the top two challenges that you're actually facing? I know any Agile framework has challenges, and I do believe that. So what are the two challenges that you're facing at the moment with the current framework that you're following? And the last one would be, you mentioned about code review. Is the code review done by all the team members or just the seniors in the team?
So let me address that backwards. The code reviews are addressed by everyone in the team. So, for example, if I start a new feature, I'd write one line of code, I push it up, add a little discussion tag on GitHub, and it's visible to the whole team. And that fosters a discussion around, the best way to do things, and we learn from each other. So it's reviewed by everyone, but there is often a sign-off kind of step by the technical mentor, just the guy who's naturally kind of the technical leader in the team. The size of the squads, smaller the better. We found we can just be most efficient.
But it also depends on the nature of the project. You've got some teams that are 7 or 8 people, we don't really go bigger than that. And other teams are 3, 4 people. So it depends. It depends on a lot of things. Sometimes it depends on the client budget. Bigger teams are going to cost more. If you need to stretch the budget, you've got to have a smaller team.
Maybe one of the challenges, so we're running out of time, but one of the challenges I've experienced is really we're now entering a foray into product thinking, and we don't really have the data to back up the decisions we want to make about the products. It's very kind of intuition-based with our experience in software, and we have a massive drive right now to do data-driven decisions. How do we instrument our applications so that we can show our clients key metrics, and at the end of the day kind of sell them a solution, prove that it worked instead of just software.
And just briefly, another challenge, I think will always be a challenge, is just ensuring you have empathy between the team and the client, and doing whatever you can to foster that. Thanks.